Welcome to today's episode of Hidden History. If you met a Neanderthal walking down the street today, your first thought wouldn't be, "There's a normal human being." Everything about them would seem wrong, oversized, and strangely powerful in ways that would make you deeply uncomfortable. Their skull alone would be enough to stop you in your tracks, elongated like a football, with a massive brow ridge that cast deep shadows over eyes that were unnaturally large and piercing. But here's what would really unsettle you. Their brain was bigger than yours. Significantly bigger. On average, Neanderthals had brain volumes of 1,640 cubic centimeters. Their body would be equally disturbing. Imagine a person barely over 5 feet tall, but built like a heavyweight boxer who had been compressed and broadened. Their bones were so thick and robust that they look almost pathological by modern standards. Their muscle attachment sites were so pronounced that they suggest strength levels that would make modern athletes look weak. Yet they moved with grace and precision through some of the harshest environments on Earth. Nothing about Neanderthal anatomy follows the rules we've established for normal human beings. Their eyes were massive. Their faces projected forward in ways that seem almost alien. Their limbs were proportioned differently, and their entire skeletal structure was engineered for a type of existence that modern humans have never experienced. Today, we're going to explore why absolutely nothing about Neanderthals fits our definition of normal, and how these abnormalities actually represent some of the most sophisticated adaptations in human evolutionary history. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about what it means to be human. Chapter 1. The Oversized Brain. The most shocking thing about Neanderthal intelligence isn't that they were stupid. It's that they were quite possibly smarter than we are, at least in terms of raw brain power. This single fact obliterates every assumption we've made about human evolution and forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Bigger brains don't necessarily lead to evolutionary success. Neanderthal brains averaged 1,640 cubic centimeters in males and 1,460 cubic centimeters in females. To put this in perspective, modern human brains average about 1,350 cubic centimeters globally. That means the average Neanderthal had a brain that was roughly 20% larger than ours. In the world of neuroscience, that is an enormous difference, equivalent to the gap between a typical human brain and that of someone with significant developmental delays. But raw size tells only part of the story. The shape of Neanderthal brains was equally unusual. Where modern human skulls are globular and rounded like soccer balls, Neanderthal skulls were elongated like footballs. This elongation wasn't just cosmetic, it reflects fundamental differences in how their brain tissue was organized and what cognitive capabilities were emphasized. The elongated shape meant that Neanderthals had dramatically enlarged occipital regions at the back of their skulls. This area, associated with visual processing, was proportionally much larger than in modern humans. Combined with their oversized eye sockets, this suggests that Neanderthals lived in a visual world that was richer and more detailed than anything we experience. They could see better in low light conditions, process visual information more quickly, and probably noticed environmental details that would be invisible to modern humans. However, this visual superpower came with a cost. The enlarged visual processing areas meant less brain space was available for other functions, particularly the frontal regions associated with complex social cognition and advanced planning. While modern humans were developing the neural real estate necessary for managing large social groups and complex cultural traditions, Neanderthals were investing their neural resources in immediate sensory processing and environmental awareness. Recent studies of Neanderthal brain development have revealed another unusual characteristic. Their brains grew more slowly than ours. A Neanderthal child who died around age 8 had achieved only 87.5% of adult brain size, while a modern human of the same age would have reached nearly 95% of their full brain volume. This extended brain development period meant that young Neanderthals had more time to learn and form neural connections, potentially giving them cognitive advantages that modern humans lacked. The slower brain development also meant that Neanderthal children required extended parental care and community support. This extended childhood dependency would have placed enormous social and economic pressures on Neanderthal communities, but it also would have allowed for more sophisticated learning and cultural transmission. Paradoxically, this cognitive advantage may have become a liability when resources became scarce. Brain organization studies using advanced imaging techniques have revealed that Neanderthal brains were structured differently from ours in ways that go far beyond simple size differences. Their cerebellum, the brain region responsible for motor control, balance, and coordination, was proportionally smaller than in modern humans. This suggests they may have had less fine motor control and coordination, which could explain why their tool technologies remained relatively static for hundreds of thousands of years. The temporal lobes, associated with language processing and memory formation, also showed significant differences in Neanderthal brains. These regions were organized in ways that suggest their language capabilities, while sophisticated, may have been structured differently from modern human communication systems. This doesn't mean they were less intelligent, but rather that their intelligence manifested in different ways than ours. Perhaps most intriguingly, Neanderthal brains showed evidence of different patterns of lateralization, the specialization of different brain hemispheres for different functions. While modern human brains show strong left hemisphere dominance for language processing, Neanderthal brains appear to have been more symmetrically organized. This could have given them certain cognitive advantages, such as better spatial reasoning or more integrated sensory processing. The energy requirements of maintaining such large brains would have been enormous. Brain tissue is metabolically expensive, requiring about 20% of the body's total energy budget in modern humans. For Neanderthals, with their larger brains and more robust bodies, the energy demands would have been even higher. This means they needed to consume significantly more calories than modern humans just to maintain basic brain function. These high energy requirements may have contributed to Neanderthal extinction during periods of environmental stress. When food became scarce during harsh winters or climate transitions, the metabolic costs of maintaining their oversized brains may have become unsustainable. Modern humans, with their smaller but more efficiently organized brains, could survive on fewer calories and thus had better prospects during resource shortages. The relationship between brain size and intelligence in Neanderthals challenges our fundamental assumptions about cognitive evolution. We've long assumed that bigger brains automatically mean greater intelligence, but Neanderthal evidence suggests the relationship is much more complex. Organization, efficiency, and specialization may be more important than raw size for determining cognitive capabilities. Modern neuroscience research has revealed that brain efficiency, the ability to process information with minimal energy expenditure, may be more important for intelligence than absolute brain size. Modern human brains appear to be more efficiently wired than Neanderthal brains, with shorter connections between regions and more streamlined processing pathways. This efficiency advantage may have been crucial for our survival during challenging environmental conditions. The Neanderthal brain also shows evidence of different patterns of neural plasticity, the ability to form new connections and adapt to changing circumstances. While their brains were larger, they may have been less flexible in reorganizing neural networks in response to new challenges. This reduced plasticity could explain why Neanderthal technologies and cultural practices remained relatively unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. Recent genetic studies have identified specific genes that influence brain development and organization in ways that differ between Neanderthals and modern humans. These genetic differences affected everything from the timing of brain development to the formation of specific neural circuits. Understanding these genetic variations is helping scientists unravel the molecular basis of the cognitive differences between human species. The question of Neanderthal intelligence has profound implications for our understanding of human uniqueness. If Neanderthals had larger brains and sophisticated cognitive capabilities, what makes modern humans special? The answer appears to lie not in raw brain power, but in the specific ways our brains are organized to support complex social cooperation, cultural innovation, and adaptive flexibility. The oversized Neanderthal brain represents one of evolution's most fascinating experiments, a test of whether bigger is always better when it comes to intelligence. The results suggest that cognitive evolution is far more nuanced than simple brain enlargement. Efficiency, organization, and specialization matter as much as size, and the cognitive strategies that work in one environment may prove fatal in another. Chapter 2: The Superman Physique. If modern humans are built like distance runners, Neanderthals were constructed like powerlifters. Every aspect of their skeletal and muscular anatomy was engineered for generating and withstanding forces that would injure or disable modern humans. Their physical capabilities were so far beyond normal human ranges that they represent a fundamentally different approach to survival through sheer physical power. The first thing that would strike you about a living Neanderthal would be their bone density. Neanderthal bones were roughly 50% thicker than modern human bones, with a density that approaches pathological levels in contemporary populations. This wasn't just genetic luck. Their bones were responding to mechanical stresses that modern humans never experience. The cortical thickness of their long bones suggests they were regularly subjecting their skeletons to loading forces that would fracture modern bones. Muscle attachment sites on Neanderthal bones tell the story of strength that borders on superhuman. The deltoid tuberosity on their humerus, where the powerful shoulder muscle attaches, was so pronounced and enlarged that it suggests deltoid muscles nearly twice the size of those found in modern humans. Their forearm bones show evidence of grip strength that would make modern athletes seem weak by comparison. The architecture of Neanderthal limb bones reveals adaptations for power rather than efficiency. Their bones were not just thicker, but curved in ways that increased the mechanical advantage of attached muscles. The pronounced curvature of their radius bone, for example, increased the distance between muscle attachment points, effectively giving them longer lever arms for generating rotational force during activities like spear thrusting or tool manipulation. Biomechanical analyses of Neanderthal skeletal remains suggest they could generate grip forces that exceeded modern humans by 30 to 50%. This extraordinary grip strength wasn't just useful for tool manipulation. It was essential for their hunting strategy, which involved close contact spear thrusting rather than the projectile weapons that modern humans developed. They needed to literally overpower large, dangerous animals at close range. Their spinal anatomy was equally unusual. Neanderthal vertebrae were larger and more robust than modern human vertebrae, with enlarged neural arches and spinous processes that suggest much stronger back muscles. The increased size of their vertebral foramen, the holes through which the spinal cord passes, indicates they may have had larger spinal cords with more neural pathways for motor control. The barrel-shaped chest of Neanderthals wasn't just adapted for cold weather. It was a powerhouse designed for incredible respiratory efficiency under physical stress. Their ribcage was not only broader, but deeper than modern human chests, containing lungs that were probably 30 to 40% larger. This massive lung capacity would have supported the high metabolic demands of their muscular physique and intense physical activity levels. Recent analysis of Neanderthal pelvic anatomy reveals adaptations for generating tremendous lower body power. Their hip bones were broader and more robust, with enlarged muscle attachment sites that suggest gluteal and hip flexor muscles of extraordinary size. This powerful lower body was probably essential for their hunting techniques, which required explosive bursts of speed and strength to overpower dangerous prey. The foot anatomy of Neanderthals shows adaptations for stability and power transmission that differ markedly from modern humans. Their foot bones were broader and more robust, with enlarged muscle attachment sites and modified joint surfaces that suggest they could generate tremendous pushing forces against the ground. This robust foot architecture would have been essential for maintaining stability while wielding heavy weapons or wrestling with large animals. Neanderthal hand anatomy reveals perhaps the most extraordinary evidence of their unusual strength. Their finger bones show muscle attachment sites that are massively enlarged compared to modern humans. The apical tufts, the widened tips of the finger bones where fingertips attach, were so enlarged that they suggest fingertip strength, capabilities far beyond anything seen in modern populations. The unusual proportions of Neanderthal limbs contributed to their strength advantages. Their shorter forearms and lower legs weren't just adaptations to cold climate. They were biomechanical advantages that increased their leverage and power generation. Shorter limbs meant that their muscles could generate more force at the expense of speed and efficiency, making them incredibly powerful but less agile than modern humans. Trauma patterns on Neanderthal skeletons reveal the consequences of their strength-based lifestyle. Their bones show evidence of repetitive stress injuries that result from regularly generating enormous forces. Many Neanderthal skeletons show evidence of muscle tears, joint damage, and stress fractures that indicate they routinely push their bodies beyond the limits that modern humans could tolerate. The prevalence of healed injuries on Neanderthal skeletons is extraordinary. Studies suggest that 80 to 90% of Neanderthal remains show evidence of major trauma. This isn't just because they lived dangerous lives. It's because they could survive injuries that would be fatal to modern humans. Their robust skeletal structure allowed them to continue functioning even with severe bone damage that would incapacitate less robust individuals. Analysis of wear patterns on Neanderthal teeth provides additional evidence of their extraordinary strength. Their front teeth show wear patterns, consistent with using them as tools for gripping and manipulating objects with forces that would damage modern human teeth. The term anterior dental loading describes their habit of using their teeth as a third hand, applying bite forces that exceeded normal chewing by several orders of magnitude. The metabolic demands of maintaining such a muscular physique would have been enormous. Estimates suggest that Neanderthals required 300 to 500 more calories per day than modern humans of similar size. Their bodies were essentially high-performance engines that consumed enormous amounts of fuel to maintain their strength advantages. This metabolic cost may have become a liability when food sources became scarce. Recent genetic studies have identified specific muscle-related genes that differ between Neanderthals and modern humans. These genetic variants appear to have influenced muscle fiber composition, with Neanderthals having a higher proportion of fast-twitch muscle fibers that generate tremendous power but fatigue quickly. This muscle composition would have been perfect for their hunting strategy, but less suitable for endurance activities. The development of Neanderthal strength began in childhood and continued throughout their lives. Analysis of juvenile Neanderthal remains shows that even their children had more robust bones and enlarged muscle attachments compared to modern human children. This suggests that their strength advantages were both genetic and developmental, resulting from a lifetime of intense physical activity. Comparison with modern strength athletes provides perspective on Neanderthal capabilities. Even elite powerlifters and strongmen rarely show bone modifications as pronounced as those found in average Neanderthal skeletons. This suggests that Neanderthal strength levels were not just exceptional by modern standards, they were beyond anything achieved by contemporary humans, even with specialized training. The question of why Neanderthals evolved such extraordinary strength has multiple answers. Their hunting strategy required overpowering large, dangerous animals at close range. Their tool technologies were less efficient than modern human implements, requiring more force to accomplish the same tasks. Their harsh environments demanded physical capabilities that could overcome challenges through brute strength rather than technological innovation. However, this strength-based approach to survival may have ultimately contributed to their extinction. The metabolic costs of maintaining such powerful physiques made them vulnerable to food shortages. Their hunting techniques, while effective, were dangerous and resulted in high injury rates. Most importantly, their reliance on physical power may have reduced their incentive to develop the technological innovations that eventually gave modern humans decisive advantages. The Neanderthal physique represents evolution's experiment with maximizing human physical capabilities. They achieve strength levels that seem almost superhuman by modern standards, but at costs that made them vulnerable to environmental and competitive pressures. Their extinction suggests that in the long run, efficiency and adaptability may be more important for survival than raw physical power. Chapter 3. The Alien Face. Looking at a Neanderthal face would have been like encountering an alien intelligence wearing almost human features. Every aspect of their facial anatomy was exaggerated, enlarged, or modified in ways that would seem profoundly unnatural to modern eyes. Their faces weren't just different from ours. They were organized according to completely different principles of anatomy and function. The most striking feature of any Neanderthal face was the massive brow ridge that dominated their forehead. This wasn't the subtle brow prominence seen in some modern humans. It was a thick, continuous shelf of bone that projected forward like a permanent scowl. The supraorbital torus, as scientists call it, was so pronounced that it would cast deep shadows over their eye sockets, giving them a perpetually intense appearance that would be unsettling to modern observers. Beneath this forbidding brow sat eyes that were unnaturally large, even by human standards. Neanderthal eye sockets averaged 15 to 20% larger than those of modern humans, housing eyes that would have seemed almost cartoonish in their proportions. These oversized eyes weren't just bigger, they were positioned differently, sitting higher in the skull and angled slightly forward in ways that would have given Neanderthals a distinctive, penetrating gaze. The size and positioning of Neanderthal eyes tells us something remarkable about their visual capabilities. Larger eyes can gather more light and provide better vision in dim conditions. Combined with the enlarged visual processing regions of their brains, these massive eyes suggest that Neanderthals lived in a visual world of extraordinary richness and detail. They could probably see clearly in conditions that would leave modern humans stumbling in darkness. The Neanderthal nose was perhaps their most alien feature. It wasn't just large, it was enormous, projecting forward from their face in a way that would seem almost comical if it weren't so functionally important. The nasal cavity was vastly enlarged, with internal structures designed to warm and humidify cold, dry air with maximum efficiency. This wasn't a cosmetic adaptation. It was a sophisticated piece of biological engineering. The internal anatomy of the Neanderthal nose reveals adaptations that border on the miraculous. The nasal cavity was lined with complex turbinate bones that created maximum surface area for air processing. As cold air passed through this elaborate system, it was warmed to body temperature and saturated with moisture before reaching the lungs. This adaptation allowed Neanderthals to breathe easily in conditions that would damage modern human respiratory systems. The midfacial region of Neanderthals showed a pronounced forward projection that scientists call midfacial prognathism. This wasn't subtle. Their entire middle face jutted forward as if it had been pulled outward by some invisible force. This projection wasn't limited to the nose. It included the entire upper jaw and cheek region, creating a facial profile that would seem almost muzzle-like to modern eyes. This facial projection served multiple functions beyond housing the enlarged nasal cavity. It provided more room for the massive upper teeth that Neanderthals used as tools, and it positioned the jaw muscles for maximum mechanical advantage when generating enormous bite forces. The forward projection also positioned the facial features for optimal interaction with the enlarged frontal sinuses and brain case. The cheekbones of Neanderthals were positioned in ways that would seem anatomically wrong by modern standards. Rather than sitting at the sides of the face, as in modern humans, Neanderthal zygomatic arches were pulled backward, creating a facial architecture that maximized the space available for jaw muscles, while positioning the cheekbones for optimal force transmission during heavy chewing. Neanderthal jaws were not just larger than modern human jaws. They were completely different in their proportions and capabilities. The mandible was broader and more robust, with enlarged areas for muscle attachment that suggest chewing muscles of extraordinary size. The absence of a prominent chin created a jawline that sloped backward in ways that would seem primitive to modern observers. The dental anatomy of Neanderthals reveals perhaps the most extreme adaptations in their facial complex. Their front teeth were enormous, incisors and canines that were often twice the size of modern human teeth. These weren't just oversized eating implements. They were tools that Neanderthals used for gripping, cutting, and manipulating objects with forces that would shatter modern human teeth. The wear patterns on Neanderthal teeth tell remarkable stories of how they used their facial anatomy. Microscopic analysis reveals that they routinely used their teeth for activities that modern humans would never attempt. Gripping wooden spears while sharpening them, holding leather while cutting it, and even processing plant materials with bite forces that exceeded normal chewing by orders of magnitude. Behind the front teeth sat molars that showed another unusual adaptation. Many Neanderthals exhibited toroodontism, a condition where the tooth pulp chambers were enlarged, creating molars that looked almost balloon-like in their proportions. This adaptation may have allowed their teeth to withstand the enormous forces generated by their powerful jaw muscles. The back of the Neanderthal skull showed equally unusual features. The occipital bun, a pronounced bulge at the rear of the skull, created a profile that would be immediately recognizable as non-modern. This wasn't just a cosmetic difference. It reflected the elongated brain shape and provided attachment points for neck muscles of extraordinary strength. The forehead of Neanderthals was another alienating feature. Rather than the high, vertical forehead that characterizes modern humans, Neanderthals had foreheads that sloped backward at dramatic angles. This receding forehead wasn't a sign of reduced intelligence. It was simply a different way of organizing the skull to accommodate their elongated brain shape and massive brow ridges. The overall effect of these facial features was to create a visage that would seem simultaneously human and alien. While individual features might be recognizable, their proportions and organization were so different from modern humans that the overall effect would be deeply unsettling. Neanderthals would have looked like people who had been redesigned by an alien intelligence according to different aesthetic and functional principles. Recent attempts to reconstruct Neanderthal facial appearance using forensic techniques have confirmed how alien they would have seemed. Even when given typical human skin tones and hairstyles, reconstructed Neanderthal faces retain an otherworldly quality that makes them instantly recognizable as non-modern. The combination of heavy features, unusual proportions, and different facial architecture creates an uncanny valley effect. The sexual dimorphism in Neanderthal facial features was also more pronounced than in modern humans. Male Neanderthals had even more exaggerated features than females, with larger brow ridges, more prominent facial projection, and more robust jaw anatomy. This extreme dimorphism suggests that Neanderthal societies may have had different social dynamics than modern human groups. Skin color analysis of Neanderthal DNA suggests that their facial features would have been combined with skin tones that range from pale to moderately dark, with some individuals possibly having freckles or other pigmentation patterns. Hair color appears to have been predominantly dark, though some may have had reddish hair due to genetic variants that differ from the red hair genes found in modern populations. The question of how these facial features would have affected Neanderthal social interactions remains intriguing. Their enlarged eyes and prominent features may have made them more expressive than modern humans, capable of nonverbal communication that relied on subtle movements of their oversized facial features. Alternatively, their heavy brow ridges may have made it more difficult to read their expressions, requiring different social communication strategies. Understanding Neanderthal facial anatomy helps explain why early modern humans may have found them so alien and threatening. When the two species first encountered each other, the physical differences would have been immediately apparent and possibly unsettling. These facial differences may have contributed to social barriers that prevented integration and ultimately contributed to Neanderthal extinction. The alien appearance of Neanderthal faces serves as a powerful reminder that human evolution could have taken very different paths. Their facial adaptations were highly successful for hundreds of thousands of years, allowing them to thrive in challenging environments that would have been hostile to modern human faces. The fact that these features now seem alien to us reflects not their inferiority, but simply the different evolutionary path that led to modern human facial anatomy. Chapter 4. The Optical Advantage. Neanderthals didn't just see differently than modern humans. They lived in a completely different visual universe. Their enlarged eyes, expanded visual processing regions, and specialized optical adaptations gave them visual capabilities that would seem almost supernatural to modern observers. Understanding their visual system reveals one of the most remarkable examples of sensory specialization in human evolution. The sheer size of Neanderthal eyes would have been the first thing modern humans noticed about them. Orbital volume. The space inside the eye socket averaged 15 to 20% larger in Neanderthals than in contemporary modern humans. This wasn't a subtle difference. It was large enough to be immediately apparent to casual observation. Their eyes would have dominated their faces in ways that seem almost cartoon-like to modern sensibilities. But eye size was just the beginning of their optical advantages. The enlarged orbits housed eyeballs that were proportionally larger in all dimensions, with corneas that could gather significantly more light than modern human eyes. This increased light-gathering capacity would have provided enormous advantages in the low-light conditions that characterized their northern European habitats during Ice Age winters. The positioning of Neanderthal eyes was equally unusual. Rather than being set deep within the skull as in modern humans, their eyes sat higher and more forward, creating a facial profile that maximized their field of view. This positioning would have given them better peripheral vision and improved depth perception, crucial advantages for detecting movement in environments where predators and prey could approach from multiple directions. The enlarged visual system extended beyond just the eyes themselves. Neanderthal brains showed dramatically expanded occipital lobes, the regions responsible for processing visual information. These enlarged visual processing areas took up brain space that in modern humans is dedicated to other cognitive functions, representing a fundamental trade-off between visual capabilities and other mental abilities. Analysis of Neanderthal skull anatomy suggests their visual system was optimized for mesopic vision, the intermediate lighting conditions between full daylight and complete darkness. This adaptation would have been crucial for survival in northern latitudes where winter days were short and much hunting and traveling had to be done in twilight conditions. The size and structure of Neanderthal visual cortex suggests they could process visual information with a speed and accuracy that would seem almost superhuman to modern observers. They probably noticed movement, patterns, and details that would be invisible to modern human eyes. This enhanced visual processing may have compensated for their smaller social group sizes by allowing individuals to gather more environmental information independently. Recent genetic analysis has revealed that some Neanderthals carried mutations in genes related to color vision that could have affected their ability to distinguish certain colors. Interestingly, some of these variants may have enhanced their ability to see in low-light conditions by altering the sensitivity of their photoreceptors. This suggests their visual system was specifically tuned for the challenging lighting conditions of Ice Age Europe. The enlarged visual system of Neanderthals came with significant metabolic costs. Brain tissue devoted to visual processing is energetically expensive, requiring constant glucose and oxygen to maintain function. The expanded visual cortex would have consumed calories that could otherwise have been used for other cognitive functions or physical activities. This represents another example of the trade-offs that characterized Neanderthal anatomy. Archaeological evidence supports the hypothesis that Neanderthals had superior visual capabilities. Their ability to create sophisticated stone tools with precise edge angles and complex shaping suggests they could see details in stone structure that might not be apparent to modern eyes. The quality of their tool manufacturing indicates visual acuity that allowed them to work with materials in ways that required exceptional depth perception and spatial reasoning. The hunting strategies employed by Neanderthals also reflect their visual advantages. Their success at hunting large, dangerous animals at close range would have required the ability to read subtle visual cues about animal behavior and movement patterns. The precision required for their spear-thrusting techniques suggests they could visually track and predict animal movements with remarkable accuracy. Environmental reconstruction of Neanderthal habitats confirms that their visual adaptations were well suited to their living conditions. The cave environments where many Neanderthals lived would have been dimly lit spaces where enhanced visual capabilities would have provided enormous practical advantages. Their ability to see clearly in these low-light conditions would have allowed them to continue activities like tool-making and food preparation when modern humans would have been effectively blind. The social implications of superior visual capabilities are intriguing to consider. Neanderthals may have communicated through subtle visual cues and facial expressions that would have been invisible to modern human eyes. Their enlarged eyes may have been capable of expressing emotions and intentions through micro-expressions that required exceptional visual acuity to perceive and interpret. Comparison with other mammals reveals that the Neanderthal visual system was unusual even by broader zoological standards. Most mammals that live in low-light conditions develop enlarged eyes as an adaptation, but the degree of enlargement seen in Neanderthals exceeds what is typically found in other species. This suggests that their visual specialization was particularly extreme. The question of whether Neanderthal visual advantages provided benefits beyond simple light sensitivity remains open to investigation. Their enlarged visual processing regions may have supported enhanced spatial reasoning abilities that helped them navigate complex terrain and remember the locations of resources across large territories. Superior visual spatial processing could have been crucial for survival in challenging Ice Age landscapes. Night vision capabilities of Neanderthals may have exceeded those of modern humans by substantial margins. While modern human night vision is limited by the relatively small size of our pupils and the sensitivity of our photoreceptors, Neanderthals may have been able to see clearly in conditions that would leave modern humans helpless. This would have provided significant advantages for nighttime hunting or travel. The loss of Neanderthal visual capabilities during the extinction process represents one of the most significant sensory downgrades in human evolutionary history. Modern humans gained advantages in social cognition and cultural flexibility, but at the cost of visual capabilities that have been refined over hundreds of thousands of years. We essentially traded visual superpowers for enhanced social intelligence. Modern attempts to enhance human visual capabilities through technology provide perspective on what Neanderthals achieved through evolution. Night vision goggles, telescopic lenses, and other optical aids attempt to provide capabilities that Neanderthals possess naturally. The fact that we need sophisticated technology to approach their natural, visual abilities highlights how remarkable their adaptations were. The study of Neanderthal visual systems has important implications for understanding human sensory evolution. It demonstrates that there are multiple possible evolutionary paths for developing enhanced perception, and that the modern human sensory profile represents just one possible solution to environmental challenges. Neanderthal vision shows us what we might have been if evolution had emphasized sensory capabilities over social cognition. Recent research into the genetics of visual development has begun to identify specific genes that may have contributed to Neanderthal visual advantages. Understanding these genetic differences could potentially inform modern treatments for visual impairments or even lead to enhancements of human visual capabilities through genetic engineering. The question of whether modern humans retain any Neanderthal visual advantages through genetic inheritance remains under investigation. Some populations that carry significant Neanderthal DNA show variations in visual acuity or color perception that might reflect ancient adaptations. However, these effects appear to be subtle compared to the dramatic visual advantages that full-blooded Neanderthals would have possessed. The Neanderthal visual system represents one of evolution's most impressive experiments in sensory enhancement. Their ability to see clearly in conditions that would challenge modern humans, combined with their rapid visual processing capabilities, gave them advantages that we can barely imagine. The loss of these capabilities with their extinction represents not just the disappearance of a human species, but the loss of a completely different way of perceiving and interacting with the visual world. Chapter 5. The Barrel Chest. The Neanderthal respiratory system was a biological marvel that would seem almost mechanical in its efficiency and power. Their barrel-shaped chest housed lungs and respiratory muscles that were engineered for performance, levels that modern humans have never achieved. Every aspect of their breathing apparatus was supersized, reinforced, and optimized for extracting oxygen from the thin, cold air of Ice Age Europe. The most immediately visible aspect of Neanderthal respiratory superiority was their distinctive chest shape. Where modern humans have relatively narrow, deep chests, Neanderthals had chests that were broad, barrel-shaped, and massively muscled. Their ribcage flared outward in ways that would seem almost pathological by modern medical standards, creating internal volume that could house respiratory organs of extraordinary size. Measurements of Neanderthal ribcage dimensions reveal respiratory capabilities that dwarf those of modern humans. Their chest circumference averaged 10 to 15% larger than contemporary modern humans, but the internal volume was increased by even greater amounts due to the three-dimensional expansion of their ribcage. This meant they could house lungs that were 30 to 40% larger than modern human lungs. The shape of individual Neanderthal ribs was also unusual. Rather than the graceful curves seen in modern human ribs, Neanderthal ribs were broader, thicker, and more robust. The spacing between ribs was increased to accommodate enlarged intercostal muscles, the breathing muscles that sit between the ribs. These modifications created a chest wall that could expand and contract with forces that would exceed modern human capabilities by substantial margins. The sternum, the breastbone at the center of the chest, was dramatically enlarged in Neanderthals. This wasn't just thicker and broader. It projected forward in ways that provided increased attachment area for the massive respiratory muscles. The enlarged sternum also provided better leverage for the muscles involved in forced expiration, allowing Neanderthals to empty their lungs more completely with each breath. Neanderthal spine anatomy reveals additional adaptations for supporting their massive respiratory system. The thoracic vertebrae, the spinal segments that connect to the ribs, were larger and more robust than in modern humans. The neural arches were expanded to accommodate enlarged spinal cord segments that controlled the complex respiratory muscle groups. Even the muscle attachment sites on the spine were enlarged to anchor the powerful back muscles that assisted with breathing. The internal anatomy of Neanderthal lungs, while not directly preserved, can be inferred from their chest architecture. The enlarged chest cavity would have housed lungs with dramatically increased surface area for gas exchange. The alveoli, the tiny air sacs where oxygen enters the bloodstream, would have been more numerous and possibly larger than in modern humans. Breathing muscle anatomy in Neanderthals was equally extraordinary. The diaphragm, the primary breathing muscle, would have been massive, with attachment sites on the ribs and spine that suggest a muscle nearly twice the size of those found in modern humans. The intercostal muscles between the ribs showed similar enlargement, creating a respiratory system that could generate breathing forces exceeding modern human capabilities by orders of magnitude. The practical implications of this respiratory superiority would have been enormous for Neanderthal survival. Their enlarged lungs could extract more oxygen from each breath, allowing them to maintain high activity levels in the thin air of high altitudes or during intense physical exertion. Their powerful breathing muscles could ventilate their lungs completely, ensuring that stale air was efficiently expelled and replaced with fresh oxygen. Cold weather adaptations of the Neanderthal respiratory system were particularly sophisticated. Their enlarged nasal cavities worked in conjunction with their massive lung capacity to warm and humidify enormous volumes of cold air. The powerful breathing muscles could overcome the increased resistance created by cold, dense air. The larger blood vessels in their chest could transport warmed, oxygenated blood throughout their bodies, even in freezing conditions. The metabolic demands of the Neanderthal body would have required this superior respiratory capacity. Their enlarged brains, massive muscles, and robust skeletal system all required enormous amounts of oxygen to function. The high-calorie diet necessary to fuel their bodies would have created metabolic waste products that required efficient elimination through the lungs. Their respiratory system was essentially a high-performance life support system for a body that operated at metabolic levels modern humans never approach. Altitude adaptation capabilities of Neanderthals may have exceeded those of modern high-altitude populations. Their larger lung capacity and more efficient breathing mechanics would have allowed them to extract adequate oxygen from the thin air found at high elevations. This capability would have given them access to mountain resources and migration routes that would have been challenging for other human species. The vocal capabilities supported by the Neanderthal respiratory system remain a subject of fascinating speculation. Their massive lung capacity and powerful breathing muscles would have provided the air pressure necessary for generating loud vocalizations that could carry over long distances. Combined with their enlarged nasal cavities and throat anatomy, this suggests they may have been capable of producing sounds and vocalizations unlike anything in the modern human vocal range. Exercise physiology of Neanderthals would have been remarkable by modern standards. Their enlarged oxygen delivery system would have supported sustained high-intensity activities that would exhaust modern humans quickly. Their recovery times after intense exertion would have been faster due to their superior ability to process metabolic waste products and deliver fresh oxygen to tired muscles. The evolutionary development of the Neanderthal respiratory system represents one of the most dramatic examples of environmental adaptation in human evolution. Over hundreds of thousands of years in cold, demanding environments, natural selection progressively enlarged and refined their breathing apparatus until it reached almost mechanical levels of efficiency and power. Comparison with modern elite athletes provides perspective on Neanderthal respiratory capabilities. Even highly trained endurance athletes rarely achieve lung capacities that approach the volumes that would have been normal for Neanderthals. Modern athletes who do approach Neanderthal lung capacities typically require years of specialized training and genetic advantages that are rare in human populations. The cost of maintaining such an elaborate respiratory system would have been substantial. The enlarged chest required additional calories to maintain, and the massive breathing muscles needed constant nutrition to function. The metabolic overhead of their respiratory system may have contributed to their high daily calorie requirements and made them vulnerable during periods of food scarcity. Medical implications of Neanderthal respiratory anatomy are intriguing to consider. Their enlarged lung capacity and powerful breathing muscles would have provided significant resistance to respiratory diseases that commonly affect modern humans. However, their metabolic demands may have made them more vulnerable to illnesses that reduce their food intake or increase their energy requirements. The loss of Neanderthal respiratory capabilities with their extinction represents a significant reduction in human respiratory potential. Modern humans living in challenging environments often struggle with respiratory problems that Neanderthals would have handled easily. Our smaller lung capacity and weaker breathing muscles leave us dependent on technology and medicine to achieve respiratory performance that Neanderthals accomplished naturally. Climate change implications of Neanderthal respiratory adaptations become clear when considering their extinction timeline. As Ice Age conditions moderated and environments became warmer, the advantages of their massive respiratory system may have become less important. The metabolic costs of maintaining their enlarged breathing apparatus may have outweighed the benefits in milder climates. Understanding Neanderthal respiratory systems provides insights into the remarkable diversity of human adaptive potential. Their breathing apparatus represents an evolutionary solution to environmental challenges that differs completely from modern human adaptations. The efficiency and power of their respiratory system demonstrates that human physiology can be modified to achieve performance levels that seem almost superhuman by contemporary standards. The Neanderthal chest and respiratory system embodied the principle that form follows function in evolutionary adaptation. Every aspect of their breathing apparatus was optimized for extracting maximum performance from the challenging environments they inhabited. Their barrel chest wasn't an aberration. It was a sophisticated, biological machine that kept them alive and thriving in conditions that would challenge modern human survival. Chapter 6. The Crushing Bite. The Neanderthal mouth was not just a eating apparatus. It was a precision toolkit, a powerful weapon, and a sophisticated manipulator device, all rolled into one terrifying package. Their dental anatomy was so far removed from modern human norms that it represented an entirely different approach to oral function, one that would seem almost alien to contemporary observers. The front teeth of Neanderthals were their most shocking feature. The incisors, the four front cutting teeth in both upper and lower jaws, were enormous by modern standards, sometimes nearly twice the size of contemporary human teeth. These weren't just oversized cutting implements. They were precision tools that Neanderthals used for gripping, cutting, shaping, and manipulating objects with forces that would shatter modern human teeth. Microscopic analysis of Neanderthal incisor wear patterns reveals how extensively they used their front teeth as tools. Scratch marks on the tooth enamel show evidence of cutting activities, gripping behaviors, and even fine manipulation tasks that modern humans accomplish with their hands. The wear patterns indicate that Neanderthals routinely used their teeth for activities that would be considered abuse by modern dental standards. The canine teeth of Neanderthals were equally impressive. These pointed teeth, designed for gripping and tearing, were massive and showed evidence of use patterns that suggest they served as combination weapons and tools. The canines were positioned and shaped for maximum gripping efficiency, allowing Neanderthals to hold objects with bite forces that could exceed modern human grip strength. Behind the front teeth sat premolars and molars that told their own remarkable story. Many Neanderthal molars exhibited taurodontism, a condition where the tooth pulp chambers were dramatically enlarged. creating teeth that looked almost balloon-like in cross-section. This enlargement wasn't a pathology. It was an adaptation that allowed their teeth to withstand the enormous forces generated by their powerful jaw muscles. The bite force capabilities of Neanderthals were extraordinary by modern standards. Biomechanical analyses of their skull and jaw anatomy suggest they could generate bite forces approaching 200 to 300 pounds per square inch at their front teeth, more than enough to crush bone or shear through tough materials. For comparison, modern humans typically generate maximum bite forces of 120 to 150 pounds per square inch. The positioning and orientation of Neanderthal teeth were optimized for maximum functional efficiency. Their front teeth slanted forward at angles that improved their effectiveness for gripping and cutting activities. The relationship between upper and lower teeth created cutting edges that could slice through tough materials with remarkable efficiency. Even the spacing between teeth was modified to prevent food and debris from interfering with their tool-like functions. Jaw muscle anatomy in Neanderthals was equally extraordinary. The temporalis muscles, the powerful closing muscles that sit on the sides of the skull, were massive, with attachment areas that were dramatically enlarged compared to modern humans. The masseter muscles at the corners of the jaw were similarly enlarged, creating a jaw closing system that could generate forces far beyond modern human capabilities. The skull modifications necessary to anchor these massive jaw muscles created some of the most distinctive features of Neanderthal anatomy. The enlarged muscle attachment areas on their skulls created pronounced ridges and crests that would be immediately recognizable as non-modern. The zygomatic arches, the cheekbones that provide leverage for jaw muscles, were positioned and shaped to maximize the mechanical advantage of their massive chewing apparatus. Dental wear patterns on Neanderthal teeth provide detailed information about their diet and tool use behaviors. Unlike modern humans, who show relatively uniform wear across their teeth, Neanderthals show dramatically different wear patterns on different teeth, suggesting specialized functions for different parts of their dental toolkit. Their front teeth show wear from cutting and gripping activities, while their back teeth show evidence of crushing and grinding tough materials. The retromolar space, a gap behind the wisdom teeth, was a characteristic feature of Neanderthal jaws. This space wasn't wasted real estate. It provided room for the massive jaw muscles to operate without interference and may have served as a storage area for temporarily holding objects while the front teeth were used for detailed manipulation tasks. Analysis of food residues trapped in Neanderthal teeth has revealed the remarkable diversity of materials they processed with their dental toolkit. Beyond the expected animal proteins and plant materials, their teeth show evidence of processing wood, bark, leather, and even mineral materials. This suggests they used their teeth for activities that modern humans would accomplish with specialized tools. The therapeutic use of Neanderthal teeth is evidenced by analysis of dental calculus, the hardened plaque that accumulates on teeth over time. Chemical analysis of this material has revealed evidence that Neanderthals consumed plants with antibiotic and pain-relieving properties, suggesting they used their powerful dental apparatus to process medicinal plants that would have been too tough on modern human teeth to handle effectively. The development of Neanderthal dental anatomy began in childhood and continued throughout their lives. Analysis of juvenile Neanderthal remains shows that even their children had proportionally larger teeth than modern human children. This suggests that their dental adaptations were both genetic and developmental, resulting from a lifetime of intense use that continued to modify tooth structure throughout their lives. The relationship between Neanderthal dental anatomy and their tool technologies reveals important insights into their survival strategies. While modern humans developed increasingly sophisticated hand tools to accomplish various tasks, Neanderthals relied heavily on their built-in dental toolkit. This biological approach to tool use was effective, but may have limited their technological development in other areas. Comparison with other mammals reveals that Neanderthal dental adaptations were unusual even by broader zoological standards. Most mammals that use their teeth as tools show specialized modifications to specific teeth, but Neanderthals had modified their entire dental arcade for tool use. This comprehensive approach to dental modification suggests that tooth tool use was central to their survival strategy. The social implications of Neanderthal dental capabilities are fascinating to consider. Their ability to process tough materials with their teeth may have reduced their dependence on cooperation for many daily tasks. Activities that would require teamwork among modern humans could be accomplished individually by Neanderthals using their powerful dental toolkit. This independence may have reduced the selective pressure for developing complex social cooperation strategies. Sexual dimorphism in Neanderthal dental anatomy was more pronounced than in modern humans. Male Neanderthals had even larger teeth and more powerful jaws than females, suggesting that dental tool use may have been particularly important for male survival activities. This dimorphism may reflect different roles for males and females in Neanderthal society. The loss of Neanderthal dental capabilities represents a significant reduction in human biological tool use potential. Modern human teeth are optimized for processing prepared foods and are poorly suited for the tool use activities that Neanderthals accomplished routinely. Our dependence on manufactured tools for tasks that Neanderthals could accomplish with their teeth represents a fundamental shift in human survival strategies. Modern dental medicine provides perspective on how remarkable Neanderthal dental adaptations were. Contemporary humans require extensive dental care to maintain oral health under much less demanding conditions than Neanderthals faced. The fact that Neanderthal teeth could withstand decades of intense tool use while remaining functional demonstrates the sophisticated biological engineering of their dental system. The study of Neanderthal dental anatomy has important implications for understanding human dietary evolution. Their powerful dental toolkit allowed them to process tough, fibrous foods that would be difficult or impossible for modern humans to consume without extensive preparation. This dietary flexibility may have been crucial for survival during periods when preferred food sources were unavailable. Understanding Neanderthal dental adaptations also provides insights into the costs and benefits of biological versus technological approaches to tool use. While Neanderthal dental tools were always available and required no manufacturing, they also limited the types of tasks that could be accomplished and required enormous metabolic investments to develop and maintain. The Neanderthal dental system represents one of evolution's most impressive experiments in biological tool development. Their teeth served as precision instruments, powerful weapons, and versatile manipulators that supported survival in challenging environments for hundreds of thousands of years. The fact that these adaptations now seem so alien to modern observers reflects not their inadequacy, but the completely different evolutionary path that led to modern human survival strategies. Chapter 7. The Hybrid Children. The discovery that modern humans carry Neanderthal DNA was shocking enough, but the implications of this genetic legacy are far stranger than anyone initially imagined. We are not pure Homo sapiens. We are hybrid descendants carrying genetic material from our extinct cousins. This hybridization wasn't rare or accidental. It was extensive, systematic, and continues to influence human biology in ways that are both beneficial and problematic. The first evidence for Neanderthal modern human interbreeding came from analysis of nuclear DNA extracted from Neanderthal fossils. When scientists compared these ancient genomes with DNA from modern humans, they discovered that people of European and Asian descent carry 2 to 4% Neanderthal genetic material. This might seem like a small percentage, but it represents millions of genetic variants that distinguish hybrid descendants from pure modern human lineages. The pattern of Neanderthal DNA inheritance reveals the complex dynamics of ancient human relationships. The genetic material wasn't distributed randomly. Instead, it shows clear evidence of natural selection acting on Neanderthal variants after they entered modern human populations. Some Neanderthal genes were rapidly eliminated from human populations, suggesting they were harmful in modern human genetic backgrounds. Others increased in frequency, indicating they provided survival advantages. Analysis of which Neanderthal genes survived in modern populations reveals fascinating insights into ancient human biology. Many of the preserved variants affect immune system function, providing resistance to pathogens that were common in ancient Eurasia, but absent from Africa. Other surviving variants influence skin and hair characteristics, metabolism, and even cognitive functions. We literally carry Neanderthal adaptations that helped our ancestors survive in challenging northern environments. The geographic distribution of Neanderthal DNA tells the story of ancient human migrations and relationships. African populations carry little or no Neanderthal DNA, reflecting the fact that most interbreeding occurred after modern humans left Africa. European populations carry moderate amounts of Neanderthal DNA, while some Asian populations carry even higher percentages, suggesting multiple episodes of interbreeding as humans spread across Eurasia. Recent discoveries have revealed that the extent of ancient human hybridization was even greater than initially recognized. In addition to Neanderthal DNA, many human populations also carry genetic material from Denisovans, another extinct human species. Some individuals carry DNA from both extinct lineages, making them triple hybrids carrying genetic material from 3 different human species. The functional consequences of carrying Neanderthal DNA are becoming increasingly apparent as genetic research advances. Some Neanderthal variants affect disease susceptibility, making their carriers more or less vulnerable to specific conditions. Others influence physical characteristics like height, skin color, and hair texture. Some even appear to affect cognitive traits, though these effects are subtle and complex. One of the most significant Neanderthal genetic legacies affects immune system function. Modern humans carry numerous Neanderthal variants of HLA genes, the genetic system responsible for recognizing pathogens and mounting immune responses. These ancient variants provide resistance to diseases that were common in northern environments, essentially giving modern humans pre-adapted immunity to pathogens their African ancestors had never encountered. The flip side of this immune system inheritance is that some Neanderthal variants may increase susceptibility to autoimmune diseases in modern environments. Genetic variants that were beneficial for fighting ancient pathogens may cause problems when applied to modern diets, lifestyles, and disease environments. This demonstrates how genetic adaptations can become maladaptive when environmental conditions change. Neanderthal DNA also influences modern human adaptation to cold environments. Some populations that live in northern climates carry Neanderthal variants that affect fat storage, metabolism, and temperature regulation. These genetic variants essentially provide some modern humans with enhanced cold tolerance inherited from their ancient hybrid ancestors. The cognitive implications of Neanderthal DNA inheritance remain controversial but intriguing. Some studies suggest that certain Neanderthal variants may influence brain development, neurotransmitter function, and cognitive processing in subtle ways. However, these effects are complex and difficult to study, since they involve interactions between multiple genes and environmental factors. Recent research has revealed that Neanderthal DNA may also influence modern human reproductive biology. Some Neanderthal variants appear to affect fertility, pregnancy complications, and offspring development. This suggests that the hybridization process had lasting consequences for human reproductive success that continue to influence populations today. The loss of Neanderthal DNA over time provides insights into the challenges faced by hybrid populations. Comparative analysis of ancient and modern human genomes shows that the percentage of Neanderthal DNA has decreased significantly since initial hybridization. This reduction suggests that many Neanderthal genetic variants were gradually eliminated from human populations through natural selection. The pattern of Neanderthal DNA loss wasn't random. Instead, it targeted specific types of genetic variants. Neanderthal DNA is particularly depleted in regions of the genome that affect brain development and male fertility. This suggests that hybridization created genetic incompatibilities that reduced the fitness of hybrid offspring, leading to the gradual elimination of problematic Neanderthal variants. Despite this ongoing loss, some Neanderthal genetic variants have not only persisted but actually increased in frequency in modern populations. These positively selected variants provide clear evidence that Neanderthal hybridization was beneficial for modern human survival. The preserved variants represent the most valuable genetic inheritance from our extinct relatives. The discovery of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans has revolutionary implications for understanding human evolution and identity. We are not the pure descendants of a single lineage, but rather the product of genetic mixing between multiple human species. This hybridization was so extensive that it fundamentally changed the trajectory of human evolution. The ethical implications of carrying Neanderthal DNA raise complex questions about human identity and responsibility to extinct relatives. If we carry genetic material from extinct human species, do we have obligations to preserve their memory or study their contributions to human survival? The fact that Neanderthals live on genetically within modern populations adds emotional weight to paleontological research. Medical research is increasingly recognizing the importance of Neanderthal DNA for understanding modern human health and disease. Genetic variants inherited from Neanderthals influence everything from immune responses to drug metabolism. Understanding these ancient genetic contributions may be crucial for developing personalized medicine approaches that account for individual genetic heritage. The ongoing discovery of new functions for Neanderthal DNA suggests that our understanding of this genetic legacy is still incomplete. Advanced genetic analysis techniques continue to reveal subtle ways that ancient DNA influences modern human biology. Each new discovery adds complexity to our understanding of how hybridization shaped human evolution. Population genetics research has revealed that different human populations carry different selections of Neanderthal DNA, creating a mosaic of ancient genetic variants across modern humanity. No single modern human population carries all the Neanderthal DNA that has survived in our species. Instead, different variants are preserved in different groups, creating a distributed genetic archive of our extinct relatives. The loss of genetic diversity that occurred with Neanderthal extinction becomes particularly poignant when considering the hybrid legacy. While some Neanderthal genetic variants survived through hybridization, the vast majority of their genetic diversity was lost forever. The genetic material that survives in modern humans represents only a tiny fraction of the total genetic innovation that Neanderthals achieved over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Future genetic engineering technologies raise the possibility of reconstructing more complete Neanderthal genetic profiles using the fragmentary DNA that survives in modern populations. While this remains highly speculative, advancing genetic technologies may eventually allow researchers to understand Neanderthal biology in much greater detail by assembling genetic information from multiple modern human populations. The Neanderthal genetic legacy serves as a permanent reminder that human evolution was not a linear process leading inevitably to modern humans. Instead, it was a complex web of relationships, hybridization, and genetic exchange that created the diverse modern human populations we see today. We are the hybrid children of multiple human species, carrying within our DNA the genetic wisdom of ancestors we never knew existed. Understanding our Neanderthal genetic inheritance changes how we think about human nature, human potential, and human responsibility. We are not just the descendants of the humans who survived. We are the inheritors of genetic gifts from the humans who died out. This genetic legacy connects us permanently to our extinct relatives and makes their story part of our own ongoing evolutionary journey. Chapter 8: The Impossible Survival. Neanderthals didn't just survive in harsh environments. They thrived in conditions that would kill modern humans within hours. Their ability to live comfortably in Ice Age Europe represents one of the most extreme examples of environmental adaptation in human evolutionary history. Understanding how they accomplished this impossible survival reveals the remarkable extent of their physiological and cultural adaptations. The climate conditions that Neanderthals considered normal would be lethal to unprotected modern humans. During glacial periods, much of Europe experienced average winter temperatures that were 10 to 15 degrees Celsius colder than today. This means that areas of southern France that currently enjoy Mediterranean climates had winter conditions similar to modern Siberia. Neanderthals not only survived these conditions, but maintained active hunting and social lives throughout the harshest winters. Wind chill effects in Ice Age Europe would have created apparent temperatures far below what the actual air temperature measurements suggest. When frigid Arctic air combined with the strong winds typical of glacial periods, the effective temperature would have approached levels that cause frostbite in modern humans within minutes of exposure. Yet Neanderthals hunted large animals in these conditions wearing only primitive clothing. The length and severity of Ice Age winters would have tested human survival capabilities to their absolute limits. In Northern Europe, winter conditions could persist for 8 to 10 months of the year, with only brief summer respites. Modern humans living in similar climates today require sophisticated heating systems, insulated buildings, and specialized clothing to survive. Neanderthals accomplished the same survival with Stone Age technology. Neanderthal cold adaptations began with their basic physiology. Their compact, muscular body plan minimized surface area relative to body mass, reducing heat loss according to the principles of Allen's rule. Their shortened limbs further reduced the extremities most vulnerable to frostbite. Their enlarged nasal cavities could warm freezing air to body temperature before it reached their lungs. The metabolic adaptations necessary for Ice Age survival would have required fundamental changes to Neanderthal physiology. Their bodies had to generate enormous amounts of internal heat while simultaneously conserving that heat against constant environmental losses. This required a metabolic rate that was probably 300 to 500 calories per day, higher than modern humans of similar size. Fuel requirements for maintaining body temperature in Ice Age conditions would have been staggering. Neanderthals needed to consume massive quantities of high-energy foods just to meet their basic metabolic needs. During the coldest periods, they may have required 4,000 to 5,000 calories per day, more than twice the intake of sedentary modern humans. Obtaining this much food from Ice Age environments required hunting and foraging capabilities that modern humans have never developed. The hunting strategies that Neanderthals employed in Ice Age conditions would be considered impossible by modern standards. They routinely killed massive animals like woolly mammoths and woolly rhinoceros, using only handheld spears in weather conditions that would incapacitate modern hunters. This required not just extraordinary physical capabilities, but planning and coordination skills that could function effectively in life-threatening environments. Food storage and processing in Ice Age conditions presented challenges that modern humans have never had to solve without technology. Neanderthals had to preserve large quantities of meat in environments where bacterial decomposition was slow, but where scavengers and competing predators were constant threats. They developed techniques for processing and storing food that allowed them to maintain nutrition through months-long winters. Water procurement during Ice Age winters would have been a constant survival challenge. Surface water was frozen solid for months at a time, requiring Neanderthals to obtain water by melting snow and ice. This process requires fuel for fires and containers for heating resources that were scarce and precious during the harsh winter months. Yet Neanderthals managed to maintain adequate hydration throughout extended winter periods. Shelter construction in Ice Age environments required engineering solutions that modern humans have rarely attempted. Neanderthals built structures that could protect them from temperatures that would be fatal to unprotected humans, using only materials available in their harsh environments. Archaeological evidence reveals that they created shelters using mammoth bones, animal hides, and carefully managed fires that could maintain livable internal temperatures. Fire management in Ice Age conditions would have required skills that modern humans have largely lost. Maintaining fires in high winds, freezing temperatures, and limited fuel availability required constant attention and sophisticated understanding of combustion principles. Neanderthals had to keep fires burning continuously for months, while managing precious fuel resources that were difficult to gather in winter conditions. The psychological challenges of surviving Ice Age winters would have been as difficult as the physical demands. Modern humans living in extreme northern latitudes today frequently experience seasonal depression, vitamin D deficiency, and other psychological problems related to limited sunlight exposure. Neanderthals had to maintain mental health and social cohesion through winter conditions that were far more severe and prolonged. Clothing technologies that Neanderthals developed for Ice Age survival were remarkably sophisticated despite their simple materials. Analysis of wear patterns on stone tools suggests they could process animal hides into clothing that provided effective insulation against extreme cold. Their garments had the functioning conditions that would quickly defeat modern winter clothing. Group cooperation during Ice Age survival would have required social organization skills that ensured community survival when individual survival was marginal. Neanderthal communities had to coordinate food sharing, fire maintenance, shelter construction, and childcare under conditions where mistakes could be fatal for entire groups. This level of social organization under stress exceeds anything modern humans regularly accomplish. Medical care in Ice Age conditions would have been particularly challenging given the high injury rates associated with hunting large animals in harsh environments. Neanderthal communities somehow managed to care for severely injured individuals through winter conditions that would make modern medical evacuation impossible. Archaeological evidence shows that many Neanderthals survived major trauma that would be challenging to treat even with modern medical technology. Child rearing in Ice Age conditions required parenting skills that modern humans have never had to develop. Neanderthal children had to be kept alive and healthy in environments that would be considered dangerous for modern children, even with protective equipment and heated shelter. The fact that Neanderthal populations maintained themselves for hundreds of thousands of years demonstrates remarkable success at protecting their most vulnerable members. The energy balance calculations for Ice Age survival reveal how precarious Neanderthal existence actually was. The high metabolic costs of maintaining body temperature in extreme cold meant that they lived constantly on the edge of starvation. Any disruption to their food procurement, injury, bad weather, animal migration could quickly become fatal for individuals or entire communities. Modern survival experts attempting to replicate Neanderthal living conditions have rarely succeeded for more than a few days, even with the advantage of modern knowledge and backup support systems. This highlights how remarkable Neanderthal adaptations actually were, and how far modern human physiology has drifted from the capabilities necessary for Ice Age survival. Climate modeling of Ice Age Europe reveals environmental conditions that modern humans consider uninhabitable. Average winter temperatures approach those found in modern Antarctica, while summer conditions barely reach levels that modern humans consider comfortable. The seasonal temperature swings were so extreme that adaptation required physiological flexibility that modern humans lack. The extinction of Neanderthals, despite their remarkable Ice Age adaptations, suggests that their extreme specialization may have become a liability when environmental conditions changed. As Ice Age conditions moderated, the metabolic costs of maintaining cold adaptations may have outweighed their benefits, making Neanderthals less competitive in the milder environments that emerged during interglacial periods. Understanding Neanderthal Ice Age survival provides sobering perspective on modern human environmental vulnerability. Our current physiology and cultural practices are optimized for temperate conditions and technological support systems. Without modern heating, clothing, and food preservation technologies, contemporary humans would be helpless in the conditions that Neanderthals considered normal. The genetic basis of Neanderthal cold adaptations may still influence some modern human populations that carry significant Neanderthal DNA. Genetic variants that affect metabolism, fat storage, and temperature regulation may represent lingering traces of the physiological adaptations that allowed Ice Age survival. These genetic legacies connect modern humans to our cold-adapted ancestors. The loss of Neanderthal environmental adaptations represents a significant reduction in human environmental tolerance. Modern humans can survive in challenging environments only with extensive technological support, while Neanderthals accomplished similar survival using biological adaptations alone. Their extinction reduced the range of environments that humans can inhabit without technology, making our species more dependent on artificial life support systems. Chapter 9. The Lost Intelligence. Neanderthal intelligence wasn't just different from modern human cognition. It was organized according to completely different principles that prioritized immediate environmental mastery over abstract cultural development. Understanding their cognitive capabilities reveals that intelligence itself can take multiple evolutionary paths, and the type of smartness that modern humans developed was just one possible solution to survival challenges. The foundation of Neanderthal intelligence was their extraordinary sensory integration capabilities. With their enlarged visual systems, enhanced olfactory processing, and superior tactile sensitivity, Neanderthals lived in a sensory world that was richer and more detailed than anything modern humans experience. Their brains were essentially supercomputers for processing environmental information in real time. This sensory superiority translated into practical intelligence that would seem almost supernatural to modern observers. Neanderthals could read environmental conditions with precision that allowed them to predict weather changes, locate hidden resources, and navigate complex terrain using subtle cues that would be invisible to modern humans. Their environmental intelligence was so sophisticated that they could thrive in ecosystems that would challenge modern humans even with technological assistance. Recent analysis of Neanderthal brain endocasts reveals that their sensory processing regions were not just larger, but organized in ways that suggest unprecedented integration between different sensory modalities. While modern human brains tend to process visual, auditory, and tactile information in relatively separate neural networks, Neanderthal brains appear to have had much more cross-connection between sensory regions. This integration would have allowed them to combine information from multiple senses in ways that created extraordinarily rich environmental awareness. The implications of this sensory integration extend far beyond simple perception. When hunting large, dangerous animals, the ability to simultaneously process visual movement patterns, auditory cues about animal behavior, tactile feedback from weapon handling, and even olfactory information about animal health and emotional state would have provided enormous advantages. Neanderthals essentially possessed a biological early warning system that could detect threats and opportunities that would be invisible to modern human senses. The spatial reasoning capabilities of Neanderthals were particularly remarkable. Their enlarged parietal lobes, brain regions associated with spatial processing, allowed them to maintain detailed mental maps of vast territories. They could remember the locations of resources, tools, and shelter across hundreds of square kilometers without any external navigation aids. This spatial intelligence was crucial for survival in Ice Age landscapes where getting lost meant death. Archaeological evidence supports the hypothesis that Neanderthal spatial intelligence exceeded modern human capabilities in multiple domains. Analysis of their tool manufacturing sites reveals that they could mentally rotate complex three-dimensional shapes and predict how stone fractures would propagate through different materials. This level of spatial reasoning required cognitive capabilities that modern humans achieve only with extensive training or technological assistance. The navigation abilities of Neanderthals were probably superior to those of modern humans in natural environments. Their mental mapping capabilities would have allowed them to maintain accurate